Arya stood at the kitchen table, clutching an empty jewelry box. $25,000 and $200, which she'd been saving for 4 years, was gone. Raindrops dripped down the glass, creating bizarre patterns that looked like the tears she was holding back with all her might. The front door slammed shut. Caleb's heavy footsteps echoed through the small apartment. Arya took a deep breath. 3 weeks. It had only been 3 weeks since their wedding, and already she could feel the crumbling of everything they had been trying to build for 4 years. Caleb, Arya's voice sounded deceptively calm. Can you explain where the money is? Caleb froze in the kitchen doorway. His tall figure filled the entire space. At 22, he still had the athletic physique of his college days, though a small belly was beginning to show. His normally confident face now expressed a mixture of surprise and wariness. What money, Arya? He tried to smile, but it came out crooked and unnatural. Don't pretend you don't understand. Arya picked up the box and shook it. The $25,000 I gave you for a new car. The money I've been collecting for 3 goddamn years. Caleb ran a hand through his short-cropped hair and walked slowly to the refrigerator, carefully avoiding his wife's gaze. I've been meaning to tell you, he muttered, pulling out a bottle of beer. He opened it and took a big gulp. Just waiting for the right time. The right time? Arya's voice rose an octave. What the hell did you do? Where's my money? Caleb slumped into a chair and stared at the floor. I borrowed it. Temporarily. I wanted to maximize it. I had a plan. You know, I'd pay it back, with interest. What are you talking about? Arya could feel the terror rising inside her. I know a place, Caleb began, but Arya cut him off. Don't tell me you lost it. She stepped closer, peering into his eyes. Please tell me you're not that stupid. The silence that followed was more eloquent than any confession. God. Arya recoiled as if struck by a blow. You lost $25,000? Every damn dime of it? I wanted it back. Caleb jumped to his feet. I had a plan. I was sure I was going to win. A plan? Arya threw the box to the floor. You don't understand. Caleb raised his voice. I had a system. I was so close. A system? Arya laughed bitterly. Why didn't you tell me before the wedding that you were a gambler? Why did you hide your problems from me? Anger began to boil inside her, rising like a wave, overwhelming her entire being. 4 years. She had worked overtime, saving every extra dollar. 3 years she had denied herself everything, dreaming of a future. And for what? For the man she loved, the man she trusted, to throw it all away in a few measly days. I'm not a gambler, Caleb slammed his fist on the table, causing the dishes to bounce. This was an isolated incident. I wanted to make us a better life. A better life? Arya stepped close to him, her voice shaking with rage. Dude, $25,000. Caleb turned away and stared out the window. The rain had intensified, pounding on the glass like an accusation. I'll pay it back, he said quietly. I swear I'll pay it all back. How? Arya crossed her arms tightly over her chest. How are you going to get it back? Your cafe is barely afloat. You don't have that kind of money. Give me time. Caleb looked at her pleadingly. I'll fix it. Time? Arya shook her head. What difference does it make? I'll get it back. That's all you need to know. Caleb waved it away. You don't understand, Arya said, her voice breaking. It's not just about money. It's about trust. You deceived me. I didn't, Caleb objected quickly. I just didn't tell you. It's different. It makes no difference to me, Arya said quietly. You should have told me about your gambling problem before we got married. I don't have a problem. Caleb pounded his fist on the table again. It was one time. One damn time. One time that cost us $25,000. Arya shouted. Do you realize how much that is to me? How long I've been collecting that money? Their voices grew louder and louder, echoing through the small apartment. The walls seemed to shrink around them, making the atmosphere even more suffocating. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Arya and Caleb froze, looking at each other. I ignore it, Caleb hissed. Maybe they'll go away. But the knocking repeated, this time more insistently. Arya took a deep breath, trying to calm herself, and headed for the door. When she opened it, she found Jasmine, their neighbor, standing outside. Jasmine worked as a night nurse at the city hospital and was usually asleep at this time, preparing for her night shift. Is everything all right? Jasmine asked, peering over Arya's shoulder into the apartment. Jasmine was a short woman, with short dreadlocks dyed purple. It's okay. Arya tried to smile, but it came out strained. Just a little misunderstanding. A 25,000 misunderstanding, Caleb muttered loudly behind her. What? Jasmine frowned. Nothing. Arya threw a warning glance over her shoulder. I'm sorry we woke you up. We'll be quieter. Jasmine didn't look convinced. She'd known Arya for 6 years, ever since she'd moved into the apartment complex. They weren't close friends, but they maintained a friendly relationship. Jasmine had even attended Arya and Caleb's wedding 2 weeks ago, and remembered how happy the bride had looked. Are you sure? Jasmine asked, lowering her voice. If you need help, I'm fine. Really? Arya smiled again, strained. Thank you for your concern. Closing the door, Arya leaned her back against it and closed her eyes. When she opened them, Caleb was standing in front of her, his face twisted with anger. Why did you do it? He hissed. What? Arya frowned. Making me look like an idiot in front of my neighbor. Caleb stepped closer to her. A little misunderstanding. Like I'm some kid who doesn't know what he's doing. Do you understand? Arya pushed away from the door, walking past him into the living room. Because it's not obvious right now, she shot back. You always do this. Caleb followed her. You make me look like a fool. Humiliate me. What are you talking about? Arya looked at him in surprise. I never, always, Caleb interrupted her. At your boss's party, when you corrected my every word. At the cafe, when you ordered for me, because you know what I like. All the time, Arya. That's bullshit. Arya shook her head. You're just trying to distract me from the subject. From the fact that you lost $25,000. Stop repeating that figure, Caleb exploded. I know how much it was. I'll give you your precious money back. How? Arya crossed her arms over her chest again. How are you going to get it back? None of your business, Caleb snarled. I'll take care of it myself. None of my business? Arya laughed, but there was no humor in her laughter. It's my money, Caleb. Of course it's my business. You said it was a gift, Caleb reminded her. Then it's no longer yours. I didn't give it to you to lose it, Arya shouted. I wanted you to buy a car, so you wouldn't have to drive that wreck that stalls every 5 minutes. Maybe I don't want a new car. Caleb crossed his arms stubbornly. Maybe I like my wreck. Oh, stop it, Arya rolled her eyes. You said yourself how you wanted a new car, how tired you were of yours breaking down all the time. That was an excuse, Caleb confessed. I was planning to invest in the cafe. Expand the menu. Hire another chef. What? Arya stared at him. Why didn't you tell me? Because you wouldn't have agreed. Caleb turned away. You think the cafe is a waste of time. You think I should get a normal job, as you call it. Because it is, exclaimed. Your cafe hasn't made a profit for the 3rd year. You work 16 hours a day and you can barely make ends meet. But I'm doing what I love, Caleb objected. Unlike you, running errands for a politician. Gavin is not just a politician, Arya defended herself. He's a good man, a good politician. He really cares about people. Really? Caleb smirked sarcastically. Does he care about you too? All those late meetings? Urgent calls in the middle of the night? Stop it. Arya raised her hand warningly. Don't you dare even hint at it. There's nothing going on between me and Gavin. Really? Caleb came closer. Then why do you keep talking about him? Gavin this, Gavin that. Maybe I should have lost the money to him instead of the casino, then you wouldn't be so angry. Arya couldn't take it anymore. She slapped Caleb across the face. The sound of the slap echoed around the room, causing both of them to freeze in shock. Caleb slowly raised his hand to his cheek, his eyes narrowing. Is this how you solve problems? He gritted his teeth. With violence? I didn't mean to. Arya pulled back, suddenly afraid of her actions. You crossed the line. You know there's nothing between Gavin and me. Do I know? Caleb grinned bitterly. All I know is that you spend more time with him than you do with me. That you talk about him all the time. Exclaimed. Caleb stared at her in silence for a long minute, then turned abruptly and headed for the door. Where are you going? Arya asked. I need to get some air, he said over his shoulder. Otherwise I'll say something I'll regret. He walked out, slamming the door loudly behind him. Arya remained standing in the middle of the living room, feeling something inside her snap. 2 weeks. Only 2 weeks after the wedding, and they were already on edge. It was still raining when Jasmine knocked on Arya's apartment door the next morning. Jasmine had just returned from her night shift and wanted to make sure her roommate was okay. Last night's fight had sounded serious, and Jasmine couldn't stop worrying all night. No one answered her knock. Jasmine frowned and knocked harder. Silence. She knew Arya must be home. On Wednesdays, she usually worked from home until lunchtime before heading to Gavin's office. Arya? Jasmine called out, pressing her ear against the door. "Are you in there?" There was no answer. Anxiety began to build. Jasmine remembered the spare key Arya had given her a year ago, when Jasmine agreed to water her plants while Arya was on vacation. She had never used it since then, but she still had it. After a moment's hesitation, Jasmine made up her mind. She took the key out of her bag and inserted it into the lock. The door opened with a slight creak. "Arya?" she called again, entering the apartment. "It's Jasmine. I apologize for the intrusion, but I was worried." The door to the bedroom was ajar. Jasmine slowly pushed it open and peeked inside. What she saw made her scream. Arya was lying on the floor next to the bed. Her eyes were open but unseeing, and a dark pool of blood had spread around her head, already beginning to dry around the edges. A broken lamp stood on the bedside table, its shards glinting in the morning light filtering through the blinds. Jasmine rushed to the phone, her hands shaking so badly that she misdialed 911 twice. "911, how can I help you?" came the dispatcher's calm voice. "My neighbor." Jasmine's voice trailed off. "I think she's dead. Oh my God, there's blood everywhere." She knelt down next to Arya, trying not to step in the pool of blood, and pressed her fingers to Arya's neck. The skin was cold. "No pulse," she informed the dispatcher. "And she's cold. I think she's been dead for hours." "Stay where you are, man," the dispatcher said calmly. "The police will be with you in a few minutes. Don't touch anything else." Less than 20 minutes later, Arya's apartment was filled with people. Uniformed police officers fenced off the crime scene, while paramedics officially pronounced her dead. Jasmine was sitting on the living room couch, answering questions from a young patrolman, when two detectives entered the apartment. Detective Liam Washington was a tall man with broad shoulders and a smoothly shaven head, in his 40s. He had a reputation as one of the best homicide investigators in Detroit. His partner, Detective Victoria, was the complete opposite. A short, slender woman of 32, with a sharp mind and an even sharper tongue. "Detective Washington, homicide," Liam introduced himself, showing his badge to the patrolman. "What do we have here?" "Arya Johnson, 28 years old," the patrolman answered, checking his notes. "Found dead this morning by a neighbor. Presumably blunt force trauma to the head." Liam nodded and turned to Jasmine. "Miss Jasmine?" "Jasmine," she replied, wiping her tear-stained eyes. "Jasmine. Miss Jasmine." Liam crouched down next to her while Victoria headed into the bedroom to examine the body. "Tell me what happened." I just went in to check on her." Jasmine's voice was shaking. "Last night, I heard her and her husband arguing. It was pretty loud. I knocked on their door to make sure everything was okay. Arya said everything was fine, but I was worried. This morning, when I got home from work, I decided to check on her." Liam was making notes in his notebook. "You mentioned her husband. What's his name?" "Caleb," Jasmine answered. "Caleb. They were married just 2 weeks ago. And where is he now?" "I don't know." Jasmine shook her head. "When I came in this morning, he wasn't there. And after that fight last night, I haven't seen him come back." "What was the fight about?" Liam leaned in closer. "I didn't hear everything." Jasmine rubbed the sleeve of her uniform jacket nervously. "But something about money. 25,000 euros. Arya had yelled that Caleb had lost it. They were both very angry. At that moment, Victoria came out of the bedroom, her face grim. "Liam, you should see this," she said. Liam apologized to Jasmine and followed his partner into the bedroom. Arya was still lying on the floor, but the medical examiner was already working on the body, taking preliminary notes. "What do you got?" Liam asked. "Look," Victoria pointed to the broken lamp. "It looks like she was hit with this. There are traces of blood and hair on the base." "The murder weapon?" Liam suggested. "Maybe," Victoria nodded. "But that's not all. Look at the closet and the nightstands. They've obviously been searched. All the drawers have been pulled out. Things are scattered. Robbery?" Liam looked around the room. "Maybe," Victoria shrugged. "Or someone was looking for something specific. The neighbor mentioned $25,000. "Yes," Liam nodded. "According to her, the victim blamed her husband for losing that money. Maybe he came back to find more and ran into the wife," Victoria finished. "Or they continued the argument, and he lost control. We need to find the husband," Liam decided immediately. Over the next 48 hours, the Detroit police conducted a massive manhunt for Caleb. His picture was sent out to every patrol car. Airports, bus and train stations were checked. His credit cards and bank accounts were frozen and tracked. But it was as if Caleb had disappeared. Tension reigned in Gavin's office. The news of Arya's death had shocked everyone, but Gavin himself seemed to be the most shaken. A tall, distinguished man of 45, with a neatly trimmed beard and always impeccably dressed, he now looked gaunt and confused. "It's unthinkable," he said, sitting at his desk across from Detectives Washington and Victoria. She was the soul of our team. Always positive. Always willing to help. "How long did she work for you, Mr. Gavin?" Liam asked. "Almost 5 years," Gavin replied. "She started out as an intern but quickly showed her value. For the last 2 years, she's been my personal assistant." "Close aide," Victoria clarified, keeping her eyes on Gavin's face. "What do you mean, Detective?" Gavin frowned. "Just trying to understand the nature of your working relationship," Victoria replied innocently. "Some witnesses mentioned that Arya's husband was, shall we say, concerned about your intimacy." Gavin straightened in his chair, his face tense. "If you're implying there was anything inappropriate between Arya and me, Detective, you're sorely mistaken. Our relationship was strictly professional. Yes, we worked together a lot, especially in recent months because of the campaign. Yes, sometimes that meant working late hours, but nothing more than that. We're just gathering information, Mr. Gavin," Liam said calmly. "We need to look at all possible motives." "Motives?" Gavin shook his head. "The motive is obvious, isn't it? That husband of hers, Caleb. They've only been married a couple of weeks, and he's already gambled away all their savings. They had a fight, he lost control, and now Arya is dead and he's on the run. What else is there to investigate?" "We're not jumping to conclusions, sir," Liam replied. "We're looking at all possibilities." "Well, consider this one," Gavin leaned forward. "Find Caleb. He killed Arya. I'm sure of it. The Quiet Harbor Motel didn't live up to its name. The shabby 2-story building with cracked plaster and a faded neon sign sat next to a busy highway. The noise of passing cars did not subside for a minute, and in the air hung the heavy smell of exhaust fumes, mixed with the aroma of the cheap eatery next door. A police cordon had been set up around the motel. Several patrol cars with blinkers created a surreal atmosphere, their blue and red lights reflecting in the puddles from the recent rain. Detectives Liam Washington and Victoria had just arrived on the scene. "He's in room 17, reported the sergeant who met the detectives. "Second floor, end of the hallway. Didn't try to run, didn't put up any resistance. Said he was waiting for us to find him." "Is he armed?" Liam asked, adjusting the holster under his jacket. "No," the sergeant shook his head. "We did a cursory search of the room. No weapons." "Did anyone talk to him?" Victoria asked, shaking raindrops off the sleeve of her dark blue suit. "Just to make sure it was really him, and to let him know he was in custody," the sergeant replied. "He didn't say much, only repeated that he hadn't killed his wife." Liam and Victoria looked at each other. The classic reaction, denying guilt before the question was even asked. "Okay," Liam nodded. "We'll talk to him here, and then bring him to the station for formal questioning." Climbing the creaky stairs to the second floor, the detectives headed for room 17. The door was ajar, and 2 officers stood on either side of it. "He's inside, sir," one of them said. "Sitting on the bed, not moving." Liam nodded, and taking a deep breath, entered the room. Victoria followed him. Caleb looked nothing like the picture on his driver's license. His once neatly cut hair had grown out and was a mess. His face showed weeks of stubble, and his eyes were red and puffy, as if he hadn't slept in days. His clothes were wrinkled and dirty, and he had the sour odor of a long, unwashed body. As the detectives entered, Caleb looked up, but there was no fear or aggression in his gaze, only weariness and something akin to relief. "Caleb?" Liam asked, though he already knew the answer. "Yes," Caleb's voice came out hoarse, as if he had been silent for a long time. "I'm Detective Liam Washington, and this is my partner, Detective Victoria." Liam introduced himself. "We're with the Detroit Police Homicide Squad." "I know who you are," Caleb replied quietly. "I know why you're here." "And why is that?" Liam asked, pulling up the only chair in the room and sitting down across from him. Victoria remained standing by the door, arms crossed over her chest. "You think I killed Arya?" Caleb said. He spoke his wife's name with such pain in his voice that even Victoria, who had seen all sorts of things, felt a pang of compassion. "But I didn't kill her. I swear to you, I did not kill my wife." "Where were you the night she died, Mr. Caleb?" Liam asked, pulling out a notebook and pen. "And why were you hiding?" "I wasn't hiding," Caleb shook his head. I couldn't go home, not after our fight. I was so angry." He covered his face with his hands. "I said horrible things to her. The last words I said to my wife were full of anger. And now, I can never take them back." "That doesn't answer my question," Liam insisted. "Where were you the night of the murder?" Caleb lowered his hands and looked straight into the detective's eyes. I was out, just walking the streets, trying to calm down. Then I went to a bar. No, several bars. I drank to forget myself. I woke up in the morning on a park bench. When I finally got home, the police were there. I saw the body being carried out. His voice shook. I saw Arya being carried out in a body bag, and I just couldn't. I couldn't go near it. Couldn't look at it. Couldn't talk to the police. So I left. Wandered around town for another day. Didn't know what to do. Then I remembered this motel. Arya and I stayed here the first few weeks we met, when we didn't want anyone to know about us. And you stayed here under your real name? Victoria asked, not hiding her skepticism. That doesn't sound like the behavior of someone trying to hide. I told you. I wasn't hiding, Caleb repeated. I just couldn't go home. Couldn't sleep in our bed, knowing Arya was gone, that someone had killed her in our bedroom. Someone? Liam raised an eyebrow. Do you have any idea who that someone is? Caleb sucked air through his teeth and tensed. Yes, I have an inkling, but you won't believe me. Why don't you give it a try? Victoria suggested, stepping forward. Caleb looked around the room, as if checking for listening devices. It has to do with the casino, he finally said in a low voice. The Golden Lion Casino. Go on, Liam encouraged him when Caleb stopped talking. It's an underground casino on the west side of town, Caleb explained. It's disguised as a private club. I actually lost Arya's money there. 25,000, the money she gave me to buy a car. And you think someone from the casino killed your wife? Liam asked, trying to keep his voice neutral, even though the story seemed absurd to him. Why? Because it was you who owed them the money, not her? Because Arya found out where I lost the money, Caleb clenched his fists. That night, after our fight, I went to the casino. I wanted to try to win it back. Crazy, I know, but I was desperate. And there was a man. Darius Montgomery, the owner of the casino. Wait, Victoria straightened up. Darius Montgomery? Are you sure about that name? Yes, Caleb nodded. Everyone calls him that. He's always there, watching the hall from the second floor. Liam and Victoria exchanged glances. Darius Montgomery's name had come up during their conversation with Gavin. He was on the list of owners of illegal gambling establishments. The politician had been investigating. What happened at the casino? Liam asked. Montgomery called me into his office, Caleb continued. He said I could win back, but I had to bet something valuable. I had nothing, except my cafe. And I signed the papers, gave him the rights to the cafe if I lost. And you lost, Victoria guessed. Yes. Caleb lowered his head. I lost everything. The cafe, the car, everything I had. Montgomery said I had to vacate the cafe premises by the end of the week. I was ruined. Got home late at night, wanted to tell Arya everything, but couldn't bring myself to go in. I was afraid of her reaction, so I just wandered the streets till morning. What does this have to do with your wife's murder? Liam asked. The next day I made up my mind and went home, Caleb continued, his voice growing quieter. But Arya was gone. The neighbor, Jasmine, told me that the police had taken her body away, that she was found dead, that they were looking for me as a suspect. I was in shock. I couldn't believe this was happening. And then I remembered what Montgomery said. What words? Liam asked, leaning forward. When I signed the papers, he said something like, "You better not try to get your cafe back through the courts." I have ways of solving problems. I didn't pay much attention to it at the time, but now I think he might have sent someone to Arya. Maybe to scare her, to get me to cooperate, but something went wrong. That's a serious accusation, Mr. Caleb, Liam said slowly. Do you have any proof? No, Caleb admitted. Just my word, and these papers. He pulled a crumpled envelope from the pocket of his jacket, hanging on the back of his chair. These are the papers I signed. There's nothing here about what he said, but it proves that I was at the casino and lost my cafe. Liam took the envelope and opened it. Inside were indeed legal documents transferring the rights to Caleb's cafe to a certain company called Montgomery Enterprises, in the event of non-payment of a debt of $35,000. Why did Liam look up at Caleb? I thought it was $25,000. Interest, Caleb grinned bitterly. Montgomery said he was adding a disturbance fee. Mr. Caleb, Victoria stepped closer. Do you realize how this looks? You had a motive to kill your wife, a quarrel over the money you lost. You have no alibi for the night of the murder, and you were hiding from the police. I wasn't hiding, Caleb objected, and I had no motive to kill Arya. I loved her. Yes, we had a fight, but I would never hurt her. People kill for far less, Liam pointed out. and it often happens in a moment of rage, not according to plan. No, Caleb shook his head, tears in his eyes. No, it wasn't me. You have to believe me. Check the casino. Check Montgomery. He's connected to this. I'm sure of it. We'll investigate, Mr. Caleb, Liam said, standing up. In the meantime, you're coming with us to the station. You're being charged with the murder of Arya Johnson. No, Caleb exclaimed, jumping up from the bed. You can't do this. I'm innocent. Caleb, you have the right to remain silent, Victoria began, pulling out the handcuffs. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. At the station, Caleb was placed in an interrogation room, a small space with gray walls, a metal table, and 3 chairs. A one-way mirror took up almost the entire wall opposite the door. The bright light from the fluorescent bulbs mercilessly emphasized Caleb's haggard appearance. Liam and Victoria stood behind the mirror, watching the suspect. Standing next to them was Captain Jackson Wilson, the head of homicide, a large man with graying temples and a permanently scowling expression. Do you think he's telling the truth? The captain asked, not taking his eyes off Caleb. His story about the casino sounds plausible, Victoria replied. And Montgomery's name matches what we heard from Gavin. But that doesn't mean Caleb didn't kill his wife, Liam pointed out. He could have lost money at the casino, had a fight with Arya, killed her in a fit of rage, and then made up a story that Montgomery's men did it. Or, he's telling the truth, Victoria countered, and the casino really is involved. Captain Wilson rubbed his chin thoughtfully. What about Gavin? Is he still pressing us to indict Caleb? He sure is, Liam nodded. Called me personally this morning, said the public is demanding justice, and that he's concerned the killer is still out there. The public, the captain snorted. Since when does Gavin care about the public? He just wants to close the case before the election, make himself look like an effective crime fighter. Still, we do have a suspect, Victoria pointed out, and a pretty strong case against him. But there's no direct evidence, Liam reminded her. No witnesses, no murder weapon with his prints on it, no DNA under the victim's fingernails, just motive, and no alibi. That might be enough for the DA, the captain said, especially if Gavin keeps pressing him. But we have to check out the casino story, Victoria insisted. If Caleb is telling the truth, and Montgomery is involved, we can't just ignore it. Captain Wilson sighed. Good. Conduct a formal interrogation. Record his statement, then check out the Golden Lion Casino. But be careful. If Montgomery is really involved in organized crime, he's not going to be happy if the cops start poking around. We'll keep a low profile, Liam assured him. Just a little reconnaissance, okay? The captain nodded. Keep me informed. Caleb's interrogation went on for several hours. He repeated his story over and over again, never changing a single detail despite the fatigue and pressure from the detectives. He flatly denied that he had killed Arya and insisted that the Golden Lion Casino and its owner, Darius Montgomery, had something to do with her death. After the interrogation, Caleb was taken to a holding cell. He looked broken and exhausted, his shoulders slumped, his eyes empty. I didn't kill her, he said finally, turning to Liam. Please, find the real killers. Arya deserves justice. If you're innocent, Mr. Caleb, Liam replied. We'll prove it. But his voice didn't have the confidence he wanted it to show. Too many domestic violence cases ended the same way. Angry husband, dead wife, and then endless denials, blaming everyone but themselves. That evening, Liam and Victoria parked in unremarkable gray sedan a few blocks from the address Caleb had listed as the location of the Golden Lion Casino. Both were in civilian clothes, trying to look like normal visitors. The building that supposedly housed the casino looked like an ordinary private club from the outside. The sign above the entrance read, "The guard at the door was checking the IDs of everyone entering." How do we get in? Victoria asked, watching the entrance through binoculars. We don't have membership cards. There's an idea, Liam said, but you won't like it. An hour later, Liam and Victoria stood at the entrance to the club. Liam was wearing the expensive suit he usually reserved for dates, and Victoria was wearing a tight black dress that made her feel uncomfortable, but made her look like a typical companion of a wealthy casino visitor. I hate you for this, she hissed as they approached the guard. You look great, Liam replied with a chuckle. And it's for the case. The guard stopped them with a wave of his hand. Membership cards, please. We're new, Liam said with a confident smile. Freddie Malone recommended this place to us. Said we could have a good time here. Freddie Malone, a small-time crook they had recently arrested, had agreed to cooperate in exchange for a reduced sentence. He had confirmed the existence of the Golden Lion Casino and gave the detectives a few names that might help them get in. The guard looked at them carefully, then nodded and stepped aside, opening the door. "Welcome to the Golden Lion," he said. "Enjoy your evening." Inside, the club was far more luxurious than its modest facade suggested. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, expensive furniture. "Looks like Caleb wasn't lying about the casino," Victoria whispered, as they took seats at the bar. "The question is whether it's connected to Arya's murder," Liam replied. "We'll proceed as planned. First, look around, try to determine who's in charge. Then check if Montgomery really owns this place, and if he's ever here." They spent about an hour on the first floor, observing the visitors and staff. Then, they moved up to the second floor. Here, the atmosphere changed noticeably. Less light, more smoke. The tense faces of the players at the poker, blackjack, and roulette tables spoke volumes. "Look." Victoria nodded discreetly toward the balcony overlooking the gambling hall. Liam followed her gaze. Standing there, surrounded by two large men, obviously bodyguards, was a tall, dark-skinned man in his 50s, with graying temples and a neatly trimmed beard. "I bet that's Darius Montgomery," Liam muttered. At that moment, the man on the balcony turned his head and looked directly at them. His eyes narrowed slightly. He leaned toward one of his bodyguards, whispering something in his ear. The bodyguard nodded and started down the stairs. "I think we've been spotted," Victoria said quietly. "What are we going to do?" "Stay calm," Liam replied. "We're just visitors who came to play." The bodyguard approached them, his face expressionless. "Mr. Montgomery would like to speak with you," he said, in a deep voice. "Please follow me." Liam and Victoria exchanged quick glances. To refuse would be to arouse suspicion, perhaps even invite danger. To agree was to risk revealing their identities. But this was a chance to talk to the man Caleb believed was involved in Arya's murder. "Of course," Liam nodded. "We'd be delighted." The bodyguard led them through the arcade to a small door in the far corner. It opened to a staircase going up to the third floor. There, a corridor with several doors stretched out. The bodyguard stopped at the last door, knocked once, and without waiting for an answer, opened it. The room beyond was decorated like a luxurious study. Expensive dark wood furniture, leather armchairs, bookcases filled with antique tomes, and a bar stocked with top-shelf liquor. At a massive table sat the man they had seen on the balcony. "Welcome," he said as they entered. "I'm Darius Montgomery, the owner of this humble establishment. And you must be Detectives Washington and Victoria. Come in, have a seat." Liam and Victoria froze, stunned that their identities had been revealed so casually. "Don't be surprised," Montgomery grinned. "In my business, knowing who enters my establishment is a matter of survival." Liam walked slowly to the chair and sat down. Victoria followed, staying alert. "If you know who we are," Liam said, deciding not to deny the obvious, "you can probably guess why we're here. I assume it has to do with the murder of that woman, Arya Johnson." Montgomery leaned back in his chair, and the fact that her husband, Caleb, owed my establishment a considerable amount of money. "You're well informed," Victoria said. "I followed the news," Montgomery shrugged, "especially stories that might affect my business. The death of the wife of one of my clients has certainly caught my attention." And what can you tell us about this client?" Liam asked. Montgomery grinned, pulling an expensive cigar from his desk drawer. "Caleb? Typical megalomaniacal loser. Owns a crappy cafe that can barely stay afloat. Came in here a few weeks ago, throwing money around like a millionaire. Said it was a gift from his wife, for a new car. He lit the cigar, letting the smoke ring out. Gambled it all away the first night. Came back a few days later, begging for a chance to win it back. I agreed, with certain guarantees." "His cafe," Victoria nodded. "Exactly," Montgomery confirmed. "Although frankly, I don't need it. I just wanted to teach him a lesson. People need to realize debts need to be paid." "You sent someone to remind him of that?" Liam asked, watching Montgomery's reaction carefully. "I don't know what you mean, detective." Montgomery looked genuinely surprised. "I run a legitimate business. I don't send people out to collect debts." "What about his wife?" Victoria stepped forward. "You didn't send anyone to see her?" Montgomery frowned, his eyes darkening. "Listen to me carefully, detectives. I'm a businessman, not a gangster from a cheap movie. I don't kill women or send thugs to intimidate the families of my debtors. I have lawyers who handle such matters legally." Liam and Victoria looked at each other. Either Montgomery was a very good actor, or he really had nothing to do with Arya's murder. "When was the last time you saw Caleb?" Liam asked. The night of his wife's murder, Montgomery answered without hesitation. He came in here drunk and upset. Said he'd had a fight with his wife over some money he'd lost. Begged me to give him another chance. I said no and had security escort him out. What time was that? Victoria asked, pulling out a notebook. About 11 p.m., maybe a little later. Montgomery thought for a moment. We should have security footage if you want the exact time. That will be very helpful, Liam nodded. My lawyer will push for a warrant, Montgomery smiled. Nothing personal, just business. I understand, Liam said, standing up. One more question, Mr. Montgomery. What do you know about Gavin and his initiative to fight illegal gambling establishments? Montgomery's face froze for a moment, but he quickly regained his composure. Gavin? An ambitious politician with big plans and little chance. His initiative is just a campaign stunt to appeal to conservative voters. It has nothing to do with my business, as I operate completely legally. He paused. Although, I must admit, Mr. Gavin and I weren't always on opposite sides of the barricade. What do you mean? Victoria asked. Let's just say that early in his political career, Gavin was less principled and more open to certain kinds of donations. Montgomery smiled. But that's ancient history now. He's a fighter for justice and the law, at least in public. Liam and Victoria left the Golden Lion with conflicting feelings. On one hand, Montgomery did not give the impression of a man involved in the murder. On the other hand, his hints of a connection to Gavin opened up a new direction in the investigation. What do you think? Victoria asked as they got into the car. I think we should check Caleb's alibi, Liam replied. If Montgomery is telling the truth, and he has camera footage that confirms Caleb was at the casino at 1100, and the coroner puts the time of Aria's death between 1000 and midnight, then there's no way Caleb could have physically killed her. So Caleb couldn't have physically killed his wife, Victoria finished. But then who did? That's a good question, Liam said, starting the car. And I think the connection between Gavin and Montgomery might give us an answer. The next day began for the detectives with a study of the surveillance tapes from the Golden Lion Casino, which they received under the warrant. The tapes confirmed Montgomery's words. Caleb was indeed in the casino from 10:48 p.m. to 11:35 p.m., when he was escorted out by security guards. Given that Aria's time of death was set at about 11 p.m., Caleb could not have been the killer, Liam said. We need to free him, Victoria added, looking at the tape. And find the real killer. Wait. Liam rewound the tape. Watch it closely. Here's Caleb entering the casino. He pointed to another figure entering a few minutes later. Do you recognize him? Victoria took a closer look. That's Gavin. That's right, Liam nodded. What was a respected politician, a fighter against illegal casinos, doing in Montgomery's place on the night of the murder? And why didn't he mention it when we questioned him? They immediately went to the captain with the new evidence. Wilson listened to them carefully, his frown growing darker as they presented their findings. Are you accusing the city councilman of murder? He asked when they had finished. That's a serious allegation. We're not accusing, Captain, Liam replied. We're just pointing out the odd coincidences. Gavin was at the casino the night of the murder. He didn't mention it during questioning. He insisted on arresting Caleb despite the lack of direct evidence, and he had access to Aria. She was his assistant. What do you think the motive was? Wilson asked. We don't know for sure, Victoria admitted. But Montgomery hinted at old ties with Gavin. Maybe Aria found out something about it. Maybe she discovered that her boss, who publicly opposes illegal casinos, had gotten money from them in the past, or even continues to do so. It could ruin his political career, Liam added, especially before the election. Captain Wilson was silent for a long time, thinking about what he had heard. All right, he said at last. Release Caleb, but don't arrest Gavin. We don't have enough evidence. Keep investigating, but do it quietly. If you're right, we need to be very careful. Caleb was released the same day. As he left his cell, he looked devastated and lost. Liam explained the situation to him, emphasizing that the investigation was ongoing and that they would find the person responsible for Aria's death. Thank you, Caleb said quietly. I knew you would believe me. We're following the evidence, Mr. Caleb, Liam replied. They say you're innocent. Over the next 2 days, the detectives delved into Gavin's past and his connection to Darius Montgomery. They found several large donations from Montgomery-owned companies to Gavin's first campaign 6 years ago. They also found evidence that Gavin, while already a city councilman,